Amazing venue. We were here a little earlier, and I'm still struck by this sort of little hideaway from the Croisette, and a little quiet, a little peaceful. We've got some time today to talk about something obviously very near and dear to all of our sort of businesses, the way we think about business, the way we think about growing businesses, working with our clients, and just the industry in general is around talent and the thought of talent and the brands that we represent, not only from a client perspective, but the companies we work for, about how important talent is and how we invest in talent. So, amazing panel. We always typically do these things where you go through everybody's bio and all that kind of stuff. That generally eats up like half of the panel, so we're not going to do that. You guys, you'll see this panel here. You've got names and titles and everything. We're going to go down the list, or down the row, as we sort of do our first comments about sort of talent. And then hopefully we'll get a debate. Questions, thoughts from the audiences, happy to make sure we're engaging everybody through the discussion. So I'll start with Brian. We'll work our way down just from a talent perspective, sort of first question. And there's actually probably differences around talent, and I do want to sort of parse these things. There's the acquisition of, there's the retention of, and sort of the development of. So we'll sort of take those separately, but from an acquisition standpoint, 360i, how do you guys sort of think about acquisition in this highly competitive world that we all live in?
As you say, those are different things, but I think they're all pretty similar. And it's really, we approach our talent acquisition the same way we kind of approach the problem for our clients on their business problems, which is how are we going to build our brand, how are we going to solve the problem? And you look at it from the talent standpoint, we have to start with why would they want to come work at 360i? What are we offering them that is of value? And how do we come up with a way where there's alignment between what we need them to do and what they want to do in their career? And so we feel like it's very important for us, not only as an agency, to promote the work that we're doing, but also to promote the thought leadership and the processes and the people and our culture around that. And if we do that, plus the most important thing is actually having happy employees, because the word of mouth is really everything. But I think at a high level, that's how we go about it. Obviously, there's a lot more detail behind it.
Yeah. Chris, from Media Brands.
Well, thank you for having me and for bringing this topic to Cannes. I think we base our thinking off of one simple insight, which is people are more emotional than they are rational. And that leads us to a strategy about talent that is very human and people to people. So when we talk about how we're going to recruit talent, we try and put our energy into the relationships that we're building with those individuals first, before we start, evaluating them as a product in our business and a skill set, a competency that needs to be met. We really want to understand the human being and make them feel that this is about a relationship not just with a company, but all of the people that you work with. And, we're trying to, we're a scale business, meaning, we have a lot of employees around the world. The intent and the balance is to figure out how do you take advantage of some of the tools and techniques that technology enable you to do to make it efficient, but not make it inhuman when you're recruiting for such a large number of jobs concurrently within one organization.
I'd love to, and we'll get back to it, but I'd love to hear sort of how that sort of manifests itself. Like as an employee, a potential employee, how does that actually show? How do I feel that from you guys?
So some of it is about teaching people how to interview people, and that you're not going in there just to go through a list of give me your chronological order of your resume and tell me all the wonderful things that you've done in your career and what challenges you've had, but actually just starting and disarming people with your own vulnerabilities and the things that you face as an individual, so that there can be a human connection, which will then be even further supported if they believe in our company's mission and the capabilities and agency brands. So that's part of it, training the individuals who are interviewing a lot. We also are using video a lot more so that people get exposed to our leadership in a just more human way, rather than reading a manifesto about the organization. You're consuming a video from our CEO talking about what's important to him and how he wants the culture of the organization, the behaviors, the philosophies that will influence how we operate, how we treat each other. So using that as a way of distributing it, but making it feel real. So it's not a sort of a they, right? It's a me and you engagement.
That's great. Jim, from a creative standpoint, we're all in a highly competitive market from a talent perspective. You guys, I would say, from an Arnold, but also from a broader creative industry standpoint, competing not only with the other agency holding companies and agencies in general, but content creators, the massive growth that we've seen there, tech companies, sort of everybody also. So how do you guys look at it from how do we recruit creatives to the agency these days?
Well, first and foremost, it's the work. It's the work we produce. It's the work that the people are talking about, the kind of work that people want to do, the creatives want to do, the agencies want to do, the brands want to do. So I think that's a big thing. How do you get to that work? Well, culture is everything. And I think if you look at our industry right now, we sit at an intersection, at an incredible intersection of technology, media, entertainment, culture. I think more so than ever. And so I think, and what we're trying to do at Arnold and as part of Havas is live up to that promise. So as part of Havas, it's about keeping things interesting. It's about constantly disrupting yourself and adding something new to the equation, letting parts of the equation that aren't working slough off and finding new ways to invigorate and expand the possibilities of what we do as an agency. So, as part of Havas, that allows us to have immediate access to Universal Music Group or Smashed Labs, which is Troy Carter's new enterprise. It sort of opens the doors to a lot of other channels and mediums and forms of entertainment. And so, also creating a maker group, a millennial maker group that is doing its own thing, but is part of the whole. So, and we're just starting that. So it's constantly adding interesting, new, adventurous pieces to the equation. And then our ability is funny. It's the cobbler's own children. We don't do a great job of marketing that. Now the challenge is getting that word out, letting people know about what we're doing. So that's phase two.
Yeah, it's actually an important thing that I want to touch on. Maybe we'll get into you on this one, Pat, which is how do you guys, again, we speak specifically Razorfish, but again, broadly industry, how do you market yourselves better on the sense of purpose and the roles themselves, and how do you excite a new generation of creatives or media executives or planners all the way through the organization? How do you excite them? How do you tell your story today? And does it come through sort of an HR recruiting sort of effort, or is it from a entire agency sort of behind the story of this is our purpose, this is our mission, and you should join us to sort of achieve these things with us?
I mean, like most of the problems we're solving for our con state, it's very complex alchemy, right? It's a bit of all of those things. I think picking on a couple of the other points, so much of it comes down to the clients that you get to work. I mean, people want to work with amazing brands, for an amazing brands, doing amazing work. So if you can tell those stories, and you have to push those out through all channels, right? You think about pushing that out through your social media channel, through your conferences and doing things like this. And so that is a huge piece of it. And I think one of the, given the scale and legacy of Razorfish now, and as we look back at our history, our alumni network and the employee experiences that we've given folks and pushing that out through the right peer-to-peer channels has become a huge part of our recruiting engine. So many of the folks that we bring in are coming from employee referrals or ex-employee referrals or client referrals. And so I think you've got to have that overarching vision, but so much of it is kind of in this kind of person-to-person communications and spreading the word that way. Yeah. And it's been a big piece of it for us.
Similar, I guess, Brian, what you're saying, word of mouth, just this notion that continues to be an important channel to motivate people from your employee base, current employee base, to the ex-employees and alumni.
Yeah, I think it's something around 45% of our new recruits come from employee referrals. Yep. And then what we really increased, and this will be a plug for you, Penry, last year we started a LinkedIn alumni club. And so now we've got, we're a relatively young company, 12 years old, but we've got 400 members of our alumni. And when people are leaving, if they leave on good terms, one of the first things as an exit interview is say you should join the alumni club. And we throw events, and it gives them a chance to network. And you know what, we had an event not too long ago, and all of a sudden we had a couple, not only leads for employees, but we had a couple of leads for business. It just reinforces that we know no one's going to stay here forever. But while you're here, it's our job to help build your career, and it's your job to help build our company, and we're in this together, and it's rallying people around a purpose. We're not curing cancer, but we are building something that we think is redefining how marketers talk to consumers, and we're building a company along the way, and we can't do that without each and every person, and we want them to feel pride and sort of joy when we succeed, even when they're not there. Because we're explaining to them, listen, this is going to be on your resume for your entire career. And people are going to think about your company, think about what you did based on how our company is performing at the time that you were interviewing. They're not going to care that it was potentially a great company in 2010. If you're interviewing in 2016, they're going to say, is 360i a respected company or not a respected company? And so we're trying to create alignment not only while you're with 360i, but to make sure that there's alignment once you leave.
Yep. And Chris, you had mentioned about sort of purpose also. How does when I'm an agency and I sort of represent obviously that company and all the employees of the agency, but also work with many customers, many brands, what is the sense of purpose that you give me as an employee? How do I connect to the sense of purpose that the agency stands for?
Sure. I think we've probably all heard about companies describe what they do and how they do it, but often forget the why they do it, right? So we've heard that framework before. I think that, as you said, we're a service company that is effectively B2B, which makes the purpose sort of both less public and not necessarily as altruistic as some of the other companies solving more serious issues. But, we do try and align on something simple, which is, we want to make marketing matter again. And while we don't claim that that's unique to us versus other agencies, it's sort of how that manifests, and that we keep it simple. So, we've positioned ourselves around dynamic marketing, and that dynamic marketing can enable us to get back into culture and be a critical part of that conversation for good, whether it's something like gender equality, and sort of have a voice on that side. And then the other thing is that we reinstill some trust between a brand and a consumer through a more meaningful value exchange, and something that, as industry skeptics, which most of us who are on this side of it are, would we engage with that? Is that interesting to us? And not that we're the filter, but at least use that to start. And that's something that we hope is not only easy to understand, translates to geographies, translates to different types of skill sets, and ultimately can be a thread that shows up throughout our organization. Because Mediabrands is a holding company within a holding company where we have 15 portfolio brands, but we need to align to one common thing that is not unique to the individual sub-brands that go to market.
And Jim, again, we're talking about the multiple layers of what talent is. You were talking about the acquisition of in this highly competitive world. Retention, again, from a creative standpoint. I work on a brand. I work maybe on a brand for many years. There's lots of opportunities if I'm an established creative to do things. How do you retain talent? What do you make sure you're doing to keep talent, which is clearly the most expensive and challenging thing for all of us to build a business, is around acquiring talent, but clearly also it's about retaining them and letting them grow. So what are your efforts, or what do you think about from a retention standpoint?
Well, I think it gets back to keeping it changing and keeping it interesting and disrupting ourselves, and again, always adding a new carrot to the equation. Carrot sounds cynical, but something new that really makes it rewarding. I think part of it is accountability, creating an entrepreneurial atmosphere where people can own efforts and initiate them. And a lot of times that's reward in and of itself, is you own this, you go do it, you achieve it, it's yours, and we've got your back. So I think it's allowing people to to really achieve on their own, and giving people that freedom, but also keeping it interesting. Again, adding layers and layers of new possibilities through technology, through partnerships, through collaboration.
And you could probably do that. I was just thinking about if I'm a creative and I'm on a certain account, and I'm good, we'll just guess, and the client probably appreciates my work, you know, you can probably give these other sort of opportunities to them without moving them off an account. Because I would imagine sometimes the client saying, no, I like that, I want this person to stay.
Yeah.
And so you've got to figure out how to help them develop while staying potentially on a piece of business.
Well, that's true. We face that all the time, where 100%, 100% tied to an account, and that's great if that's going well, right. and you're prolific in the things that you're producing, and you're proud of the things that you're producing for that client. But the days of working on craft singles your entire career are over, and careers aren't built that way. So while creatives own accounts, they want to be challenged, and other parts of their brain ignited. So we do, it's about mixing it up. I believe in mixing up teams. I believe in putting creatives on completely new, disrupting the equation. And I think it serves everyone. It serves the client, the primary client, and it serves the agency. It serves the growth of the creative. So that is a huge part of it. Is keeping things fresh and disrupting the equation.
And Pat, from your side, retention, other strategies or tactics you guys have used?
I mean, I think it's interesting. I think as people look to build their careers right now, they're kind of going out and trying to pick off like experiences or capabilities, and so they're not thinking necessarily about how do I build a career with one organization, but how do I get all these different experiences and assemble them to build something great. And so I kind of building on what you were saying, it's giving them the ability to do that within your organization. So letting people jump disciplines and letting them figure out how to do those things, or asking them to take on projects that might be slightly out of their kind of core capability. And then also doing things like, so we're doing a lot of pro bono work in other elements where we're kind of assembling teams and just saying, forget what your disciplines are, just come together and work on solve this problem and do those things. So I think trying to create more and more of those opportunities. I mean, our people look at me, I've been at Razorfish for 17 years and they think I'm insane. Like they've never heard of anything like that. And so I think it is showing them that there are many varied paths and that your organization is dynamic enough to allow them to gain capabilities that will be relevant, if they end up leaving after 5 years versus 3 or 8 years versus 5, it's giving them those paths.
Yeah, that's great. So to Brian, back to you on a question I was just thinking about through some of these answers. There's a balance that you particularly like Aegis Dentsu acquisition, 360i, so you got multiple brands there from a B2B perspective. You represent, I don't know how many clients, say 100 clients that you guys work with. Me as an employee, so what's the easiest place to attach to? Am I excited because I work on, the famous Oreo campaign, or is it attached to 360i, or is it Aegis Dentsu? Sort of, where is the sort of, I don't want to say loyalty, because I think loyalty becomes from the people you are working next to all the time, but how do I associate myself in terms of my own brand? As multiple people have said, I'm going to learn, my brand is sort of, I'm going to grow and change and grab these capabilities. So who do I necessarily attach to in this world of talent and brand?
I mean, Chris might disagree with me, but I don't believe people join holding companies. I think they join kind of agencies, and those.
I agree with you.
Okay. So I think each agency has its own culture. So Dentsu just never comes up in any discussion that we're having. I think 360i has its own particular and peculiar culture, and we're really looking for people who are curious. And so I think they are joining experience. I think, as an industry, we do a terrible job of selling the benefits of why you should come to an agency in particular, and we're always focused on the negatives around difficult clients or service or hours or things. The dynamic nature of an agency where you can work with incredibly smart people, You can reinvent yourself by jumping capabilities. You can work on different accounts. And by doing that, you're learning different businesses. If you work on Oreo and then you move over to Capital One, you're learning packaged goods, you're learning financial services, you're working on different business challenges. And so we have to lean into that in the sales side, and then we actually have to live it once they get there. Since we started the company, this is sort of pre-millennial, but we always believed in having 2 reviews a year. So we have 2 self-reviews and then a regular review. It's an administrative nightmare. HR has always tried to talk us out of it. But I think it's so important to figure out and start with our entire philosophy around retention and motivation is around alignment. And it starts with, Henry, what do you want to do your next 6 months? Where do you want to be in a year? When we make assumptions, we're usually wrong. So when we assume that people want to be rotated and then we start to rotate them, they'll tell us, oh my God, I love this account. Why are you moving me? And then when we don't rotate them, you find out in an exit interview that they really didn't see any career progression, and so they felt like they had to leave the company. So I think it's no different. We have to practice what our business is about, which is we start with listening, right? And then we try and figure out how do we evolve. So I think that what we're trying to do is you're joining 360i because you can have a variety of experiences, that we have a variety of capabilities that we are looking for, and the word alchemy was used before. We're looking for alchemists. And what we're trying to do is figure out who can understand a client's challenge and bring the right kinds of level of capabilities and people into the room at the right time to solve the right challenge. And you can learn a hell of a lot by doing that. And we just have to continuously figure out how do we do that and live that every day.
And how, Chris, if we were to, and you can be as honest as you like in this one, we'll set it up that way.
I'll pass it to Jim.
Yeah. But, sort of if we think about all these things we've talked about, sort of what we're striving for, aspiring to be a purpose-driven agency, we really allow our team members to sort of strive for the type of capabilities they want to learn. They want to attach themselves to accounts. They want to actually potentially move accounts, regardless, maybe with the clients arguing that please don't move this person. How is that manifesting to the employee? Do you feel like that is absolutely what your employee base feels, or can we do better? If we were to have the opposite of you guys here, 4 people from your agencies that were sort of in the day-to-day work of the trenches with your accounts, would they feel this already, or are they saying, I know they're trying and it's not quite there yet? Just where do you guys think you are in the evolution of this from a true manifestation of what you're aspiring to do?
The beginning. And we may always be there because the expectations may continue to grow. But, I think Brian said listening, and it's sort of what I was alluding to at the beginning, that if we don't understand what's motivating that individual, we can't apply one mechanism to solve every employee's career path, ambitions, challenges. So we need to create an environment that enables people to feel comfortable, to be open and communicate honestly with their management, their peers, and that this isn't a topic that we sort of sit off in corporate and shy away from, that we are proactively communicating. We understand that, we're borrowing time from you, and we want you to get as much out of it, and we want to get as much out of you during that time. And unless we're understanding what motivates you, some people do go to agencies because they want to work on that client brand. And it could be because they're passionate about that category, that brand. It could be because they want it on their resume because they think it's a notable piece of work. Or it could be something that they want to move, and as Jim borrowed a few people from a previous agency, they might enjoy working with other people. That might be the key thing that really motivates them in their career. So if we can't deconstruct those things in a semi sort of thoughtful way that we can reapply to a large population of people, then we're not doing our job. And while we're trying to do that and provide examples of that, and then showcase those examples so that it's not just PowerPoint and rhetoric, from leadership, it's real demonstration of that, then it starts to pick up a little momentum, right? It catches a little bit of speed, and then it becomes a more inspiring place to be a part of, because individuals actually feel that the company has their best interests at heart.
Yeah, so Jim, does Arnold do like an employee survey or anything, and is it part of that sort of like my career development and how are people doing? Are people giving me my opportunity to grow? And are you guys hearing that directly from the teams?
Yeah, absolutely. We, as a matter of fact, we just completed an employee survey, and it was, and we take them very seriously, and we have town hall meetings about them where we acknowledge them. I think the most important thing is acting on them, that you're being heard, that you're not just doing them and then filing them away, but you know what I mean? But change. That is the most important thing. That tells your colleagues, your coworkers, and your employees that you care, that you're actually listening, and everyone's got skin in the game. Everyone co-authors and co-owns the future and the success of the agency, and everyone's in it, and everyone's voice matters. And when employees see that you've actually acted on something, that's huge. That's huge. The most damaging thing you can do is conduct a survey, learn, and then do nothing. So we actually have town halls where we say, here's what we heard, and here's what we're doing. Here's what we're changing. And that's like, to me, one of the most important town halls you can have. Yeah.
If the audience hasn't noticed yet, this is a highly diverse panel we have here. And so I do want to obviously acknowledge it, but also sort of address it head on, which is maybe, Pat, from your perspective, huge issue for all the right reasons to be an issue. How is Razorfish tackling it? What are you guys doing from a recruiting standpoint, from a development standpoint, to make sure that your sort of own diversity matches your clients' needs and the consumers' needs of the brands you guys represent?
Yeah, I mean, it's an incredibly hot topic for us. I mean, I think some of the things you may have seen in the presentation that we did yet on Monday around also how well the work comes out. So the more diverse the team, the more Cannes Lions you win, those kinds of things. And so it's become a really important part of the conversation for us. And I'm not going to sit here and say that we're where we want to be. So we talk about diversity of background, diversity of talent, diversity of gender, diversity of ethnicity and experience, all of those things being part of that alchemy. And so we've tried to put some really actionable programs in place. So we're starting with all of our inbound candidates, even starting with inbound to how much who we're bringing in for the interview process, and just starting to measure and make sure that we have that awareness. And everyone is going through and if you haven't seen read the unconscious bias, going through training around that. Again, just trying to hold ourselves accountable to making the change we're looking to make. And it was funny. I was talking with one of my colleagues this morning about coming onto this panel and this being part of this potentially being a topic. And so as I look at my peer set, so I am one of 4 presidents within North America for Razorfish, and the other 3 are women. And it's been kind of an eye-opening experience for me, where I'm like, you guys can't go out and get drinks without me. If you this isn't fair. I'm kind of on the other side of the dynamic now. And for me, it's been, it has been eye-opening, and we're trying to lean into it. So we were the first agency to sign up with the Art Directors Club in New York to sponsor the 50/50 movement. We are working closely. Our largest kind of low bono, we call it, client is He for She, which is Emma Watson's movement around gender equality globally through the UN. And so we're trying to lean in, but it is a regular topic, and we're, frankly, we're regularly not feeling like we're where we need to be, but we're trying to do everything we can to get there.
That's great. Brian, similar topic around diversity. You had been CEO for a long time at 360i. A female CEO took over from you. Can you describe sort of your different leadership styles, sort of what's happened from maybe, again, what Pat's saying around this unconscious bias that you may have led a certain way and now Sarah sort of leads a different way, and what that's helped or changed for the agency?
Well, I would definitely say so. Sarah, as you know, Sarah and I worked together for 15 years, and so she was really groomed to take over. And, the conversation when I said, it's time for me to kind of move up, she's like, I don't know if I want the job. And I said, you're going to be amazing. In fact, you're going to be better at this because your leadership style, the craft of advertising, how you're going about approaching things, you're going to be better at it. And I was the right person to build it as sort of an entrepreneur. But I think the interesting thing about both of us is this is our first agency job. And so coming off the diversity thing, I think from the beginning, we focused on how do we bring in people that have different backgrounds. And I'm not talking about ethnicity or gender, just literally think differently, because we're trying to be a disruptive company. And so we do want to have people who know what they're doing, and we clearly didn't, because we don't want to make every mistake. But at the same time, we don't want to say this is business as usual. And what we found, and we continue to this day, of looking for diversity of background and diversity of thought. And an interesting thing has happened. With absolutely no conscious effort whatsoever, we've got 60% of over 60% of the company is female, over 50% of the leadership team, including our CEO, is female, 30% is multicultural. This is through absolutely no specific effort to recruit, but in the way that we've made sure that we have an environment that's a meritocracy, that we try to root out any sort of biases of any kind, that we make sure that we're recruiting and finding people from different backgrounds. I think some combination of that has made it a breeding ground for what has become a more diverse makeup. Having a female CEO has absolutely been a boon to recruiting, though. And I would say that has helped us enormously. I think it has also helped us on the client side, because I think a disproportionate number of our senior clients are women. And I think that has helped. But first and foremost, we look for the best people. And just speaking about Sarah specifically, she's the best, whether she's a female, male, green, blue, black, white. And so I think we're going to continue to focus on who is the best person and make sure that we think about things differently. And we're going to continue to monitor to make sure that we feel like we're then doing that is achieving enough diversity of makeup.
Yeah, that's great. And I would agree with you that she's definitely a better CEO than you were. For lots of reasons that we don't have time to get into. Chris, so diversity sort of addressing, but we all need more work. So I think that's sort of recognized amongst us here. What about sort of skill sets? What has changed lately as you're thinking recruiting, and then this notion of retention, so the development side of talent? What are the skill sets you guys look for? Has that changed? Do you see it changing again as we go through this, whatever this next evolution of media is, creativity is?
Yeah, it's a complicated topic that's getting more complicated. I like to think of the sort of what does the employee's T look like, right? How deep can they go on a topic, or how broad are they? And while that's a sort of simple thought process, it's trying to dimensionalize the realization that it is a team sport in this ability to solve marketing problems, and that doesn't just mean artists and engineers and researchers. It also means people who understand critical thinking, conceptual thinking, and that skill is not a department in the organization. It's something that can be nurtured, can be inspired in other people. So, it's something that is it's not just in our industry's problem. It's everyone's challenge, is to really be able to grapple multiple types of disciplines coming together to solve old problems in new ways. And it's inspiring, but our systems aren't really set up to sort of take advantage of it, right? So obviously there's industries that make parallel sense for us to be recruiting, from Hollywood, Wall Street, obviously tech companies, just because of the influence that data and technology has on marketing automation, marketing intelligence. But it is we're a startup in that sense. We're still trying to put down a canvas that's clear for everyone to understand the types of talents we need, how they're clustered, where we're going to get them. Once we have them, how do we evolve them as the needs change? But it's a tough one. And we find when you put the right combination of skill sets in the room, that isn't necessarily solving the problem, right? It seems like you've checked the box because you have all the right subject matter experts. But when it really goes well is when they have a relationship and a respect for one another, because they think more freely, they don't feel like they're going to be judged, they're more open to other people's points of view rather than just coming in with an agenda. And that's actually where the best thinking, whether that's in media planning, whether that's in creativity, whether that's a strategic solve. So, you know, that's something that we're trying to figure out. How do we replicate that? It's a softer thing, so it's harder to just deploy into an organization, but it's something that we know is incredibly valuable.
Yeah. We got about a little more than 10 minutes, I think, so looking out here, raise hands if you guys have any questions. I've got a few more that we can keep rolling through, but please raise your hand if you need, if you have something. Jim, on the, again, on the talent development side, to me, the platforms you guys work with, the creativity of going from our days of, you know, probably Mr. Eskandarian as the early Arnold, like print, radio, television, 30s, et cetera, to now the creative canvases you guys have. How do you allow, or how do you help creatives learn to build in these new formats, whether it be learning how to HTML5, do they code, do they still do traditional copy? Like, where is it? There's so many things they can do. How do you help them sort of develop with the way the world is moving so quickly to build the stories that you guys are creating?
I think it's the environment that you create. I mean, in a physical way. I mean, we have an open floor plan where everyone works together, so there's natural cross-pollination. It's a culture of getting your work off your computer and on the wall, and letting people co-opt it and co-own it, and letting different disciplines co-opt the idea and add to the idea and springboard the idea. So you know, that's a very simple thing. It's a human thing, but it's letting ideas free and letting them be co-opted so that people can bring their own particular skill set and point of view to the process. That's a big part. I think we're storytellers, and it comes to recruiting, and you know, I worked at Goodby for 5 or 6 years, and that was their philosophy. They went out and sought out not just people, ad drones within the ad business, but YouTube, you know, phenoms, and sketch comedy writers, and improv actors, and those people are thriving there. I mean, they're, you know, I think it comes down, when I look for talent, I don't look for people that have great ad books. I look for people that have great, that are extremely creative in their own right, in their own way, outside of advertising. What, you know, are they photographers? Are they writers? Do they write poetry? Do they have these innate passions to create something from nothing and are passionate about that? So I'm kind of going off subject a little bit, but so I think that's you know, getting those kind of truly passionate people who are storytellers at heart, who are creative at heart, and getting them together. You know, on the diversity, I was thinking about this. It's funny. I sat in. I'm part of a group that's gotten together in Boston to deal with the notion of how do we promote diversity. And that was an interesting table because Boston is not the most diverse, but it's a real issue. And one thing that we're doing is we're partnering with the mayor's office, and we're gonna advertising is a very tight, closed loop kind of thing where it's very insular. And if we can go out to schools and show what we're making, show that we're influencing culture, show what the kinds of art that we're making, the kind of content that we're creating, it would really turn on a lot of people. And I also think that award shows should open their doors to the community and to schools, not just ourselves, but so that people can be ignited by the things that we're creating. You know, it would be really interesting if a year from now, Cannes opened its doors to outside the industry, you know. And
make it like a traveling roadshow of the amazing work here, bring it to communities and other places.
Absolutely. People would be, oh my God, you know, students in schools, in inner city schools, in particular, who are innately creative, who are making amazing things with their iPhone would go, holy cow, it's a long game. It's a long game, and that's a huge start, is to turn the world on to what we're doing. Yeah.
We got one question out here in the back. If you just say sort of where you're from and your name, that would be great.
Yep. Hey, Penry. It's been a while. I'm Matt Prohaska with Prohaska Consulting. We have about 90 folks all around the world, but I'm based in New York. A two-part question for any of the esteemed panelists up there. Curious about the intersections between media talent and creative talent within your own holding companies, your own shops, and some of the synergies there of being able to have data be the bridge that brings a lot of those previous silos together, and how that's being influenced in the obs and strats, and then maybe in the optimization. And the second question, if you care to choose, I'm curious about programmatic integration for those of you with media buying teams. And we work with and see a lot of the integration or non-integration of traditional media buying with programmatic buying cross-channel. Curious about the progressions and strategies at your shops, please. Thanks.
You guys catch all that? Nice job, Matt. Who
I'll
wants to
I'll
jump in?
on the first one, which was effectively the talent combination between media and creativity. I think the medium and the message were never really meant to be separated. The sort of structure of our industry created that separation probably for commercial reasons, but I think it is coming back together in a meaningful way. And when you get down to the skill sets that are required to think about communication to an individual or to a small group of people, and when you're inspiring that idea, where that idea is living and how that person's feeling, where they are contextually in the world, all those things are dimensions to how receptive and how engaged they're going to be in that. So from a talent perspective, I think when you talk about silos of what you are and what you are, what department you're from, that's the wrong way to think about it. And if we just put the talented, intelligent, passionate people in the room, like they typically solve those problems without thinking of the frameworks and structure of our industry. So, we obviously all live in it, and, I may be sort of the person who's most in it because I'm in a holding company of a holding company, right? But the more we can just dissolve that and allow the people to connect and have the right types of conversations, then it shows up in the quality of the work and ultimately the performance of the work for clients.
Yeah, just to build on that, so having lived this in our legacy, so it was about just over 10 years ago that Avenue A, which was the digital media company, acquired Razorfish and smashed them together, right? And really forced those teams to get in the room and drive the ideation process across both dimensions. And so it's hugely important for us. Again, the media plans get better. The creative canvas becomes more compelling, as in even places where we're working with clients just on the advertising and creative side of things and may not be doing the media buying. Those media strategists are embedded in the creative teams on every opportunity, on every conversation, because it's hugely important. And it is, we've been talking a lot about the T-shaped employees and how do you start to get folks to just think across both those boundaries. And I think that goes back to solving some of what you were talking about how do people understand how stuff fits in all these different platforms, right? Because no client wants to pay for a media specialist, a social media specialist, a creative director, a user experience director, and we joke about the Noah's Ark of staffing, and it's like, how do you get people to be able to be more flexible and work across those boundaries? And it's by getting exposure to their colleagues, and then they become smarter on those topics.
Any quick answer on the programmatic piece and how that's changed?
I don't think there's anything quick about a programmatic answer. But I think the only thing I would just touch on, I think one of the things that's really important as an industry is that we bring creativity into all of disciplines. And so in media in particular, culturally, making sure that it's a creative environment is becoming incredibly important, because you have to think differently about how to reach consumers. And if we just kind of get into that traditional media planning environment with the spreadsheets out and you're just kind of going through the motions, you're not going to connect with consumers like you need to. And so I think it's really important that we bring creativity to all aspects of the agency life.
That's great. Any other final? Yeah.
The only other thing I would say on that is the sooner that people have respect for what the other side is doing and challenged with, oftentimes, there's a healthier discussion and likely a more productive one. And that tends to break a lot of the barriers down between major disciplines.
That's great. So I want to, before we close out, we've got a couple minutes here. One of the things that doesn't happen really at all in Cannes is anything ending on time. So we're going to honor.
We got to make sure we go over.
These guys. No. I'm going to honor these guys' time by ending on time, as well as your guys' time by sitting in the audience and sort of listening. We do have downstairs, as you guys exit, there's another LinkedIn sort of spot set up, the Clubhouse, which has sort of an exhibit, which is our second sort of manifestation of our Closer Than You Think campaign that we launched around the Oscars. And this is around this notion that we all sort of have a noble purpose, and we're all sort of aspiring and strivers, and we think of LinkedIn as a platform that's enabling sort of people to sort of present themselves in their best case and actually, again, look for opportunity. So downstairs is actually the second set of work around, here's actually behind us, this sort of this notion of portraits of purpose. And these are individuals that are, pursuing these noble things, and they're giving it their all. And I think what these guys are talking about and what we all represent as an industry is allowing the individuals on our teams to strive for their own purpose within their professional life. And we've got a lot of work to do around diversity and around skill gap and all sorts of things, but I do think the industry is really well positioned to take advantage of all of the amazing sort of creativity and technology and things that are happening, probably better than ever. And so if you do have a few extra minutes on the way out, you can stop by. Again, it's called the LinkedIn Clubhouse. It's just above the first escalators that you came up. If not, thank you for the time. And again, thanks very much for the panel today, you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you. It's great.